It all began with a bold declaration. President Trump told a cheering crowd that America didn't need Canadian lumber. He stood firm on his promise to prioritize American resources and industries, igniting a wave of patriotic fervor among his supporters. The rally was electric, with chants of USA, USA, echoing through the air. He promised to end what he called unfair trade, vowing tariffs to protect American jobs and industries. This move was seen as a direct challenge to the long-standing trade relationships that had been in place for decades. American sawmill workers and construction laborers were hopeful, believing that this could be the change they needed to secure their livelihoods. This wasn't just rhetoric. It was the start of a trade war that would shake the U.S. economy. The imposition of tariffs led to immediate tensions at the border, with shipping containers piling up and delays becoming the norm. News outlets were abuzz with economic analysts debating the potential fallout of this bold move. The president's message was simple: America first, even if it meant cutting off a critical supply. His speeches were filled with promises of a stronger, more self-reliant nation. The imagery of American flags and America First banners became synonymous with his administration's trade policies. But the reality was far more complex. The U.S. construction industry depended on Canadian lumber for decades. Builders and contractors were suddenly faced with skyrocketing costs and supply shortages. The lumber that was once readily available was now a scarce commodity, leading to delays and increased expenses for construction projects across the country. Trump's gamble would soon turn into a costly experiment, with American families paying the price. Home buyers found themselves grappling with higher prices and longer wait times for their dream homes. The ripple effects of the tariffs were felt in every corner of the economy, from small businesses to large corporations. As the trade war dragged on, the initial excitement gave way to a sobering reality. The administration quickly followed up with sweeping tariffs, 25% on all Canadian and Mexican goods, including lumber. For lumber, this stacked on top of existing duties, pushing total tariffs close to 40% and sending the market into chaos. By August, tariffs jumped again, now justified by unrelated political disputes, creating uncertainty for businesses. A new national security investigation threatened even higher tariffs, possibly exceeding 50%. The result? American builders faced unpredictable soaring costs, with every new policy announcement making planning nearly impossible. These tariffs weren't targeted, they were a blunt instrument, and the American housing market was directly in their path. The U.S. housing market is built on Canadian lumber, a fact that often goes unnoticed, but is absolutely vital to the way Americans live, work, and build their dreams. Every time a new neighborhood rises, or a family renovates their home, chances are Canadian wood is at the heart of it. In fact, 85% of all softwood lumber imports into the United States come from Canada. That's not just a statistic, it's a lifeline for the American construction industry, which depends on a steady, reliable flow of high-quality timber from its northern neighbor. Nearly a quarter of all softwood used in America is Canadian, forming the backbone of new homes nationwide. From the framing of suburban houses to the beams supporting city apartments, Canadian lumber is woven into the very fabric of American life. In 2023 alone, the U.S. imported over 28 million cubic meters of Canadian lumber. That's enough wood to build hundreds of thousands of homes, schools, and businesses, fueling growth in communities from coast to coast. This isn't a supply you can replace overnight. Domestic producers simply can't fill the gap. American forests and mills, while significant, don't have the capacity or infrastructure to meet the nation's insatiable demand for wood products on their own. When tariffs hit, the cost is passed down the line, from importers, who must pay more to bring in the wood, to wholesalers and retailers, who see their margins squeezed, and ultimately to the end consumer. Builders are forced to pay higher prices for essential materials, which means the cost of constructing new homes rises. And for homebuyers, especially first-timers or young families, these increased costs can put the dream of homeownership just out of reach. The result? A direct tax on American families looking to buy a home. Higher lumber prices ripple through the entire economy, making housing less affordable and slowing down new construction. The U.S. dependency on Canadian wood means tariffs hit Americans hardest. As long as this reliance continues, every policy change, every trade dispute, and every new tariff will be felt not just by businesses but by millions of families chasing the American dream. The impact was immediate. lumber prices soared, sending shockwaves through the entire housing market. What was once a routine trip to the lumberyard became a moment of sticker shock for builders and homeowners alike. The cost of basic materials, like 2x4s and plywood, climbed higher and higher, making it harder for anyone to start or finish a home construction project. By spring 2025, the average price of a new home had jumped by nearly $11,000, an increase that hit families, first-time buyers, and even seasoned homeowners looking to upgrade or downsize. For many, this extra cost was the final straw, pushing the dream of homeownership further out of reach. Families who had spent years saving for a down payment suddenly found themselves priced out of the market. The listings they once considered affordable were now unattainable, and the hope of moving into a new home faded for countless Americans. Lumber prices didn't just rise, they skyrocketed, jumping 13% in just a few months. Headlines across the country warned of the crisis, and the numbers kept climbing. By summer, lumber was up 17% year over year. Builders struggled to budget for projects as costs changed week by week. Many were forced to delay or cancel builds, unsure if they could afford to finish what they started. Every new project became riskier and more expensive. Contractors faced tough choices. Should they absorb the extra costs, pass them on to buyers, or walk away from jobs altogether? The uncertainty rippled through the industry, affecting everyone from small business owners to large developers. And it wasn't just lumber. Tariffs on other essential materials, like gypsum for drywall, steel for beams, and aluminum for siding, piled on, compounding the problem. Each new tariff acted like another weight on the scale, making every part of a new home more expensive to build. From the foundation to the rooftop, no part of the home was spared from rising costs. Even the most basic structures became luxury items, as price tags soared beyond what most families could afford. The result was a perfect storm of unaffordability. Neighborhoods that once bustled with new construction and families moving in now sat quiet, with empty lots and for sale signs lingering for months. Tariffs acted as a direct tax on the American dream, making it harder for families to put down roots and build a future. The promise of home ownership, a cornerstone of the American way of life, slipped further from reach for millions. In the end, these policies meant fewer families could afford a roof over their heads, leaving communities with empty homes, stalled dreams, and a growing sense of uncertainty about what the future holds. Why not just make more American lumber? The answer: it's not that simple. U.S. sawmills face labor shortages, high borrowing costs, and even closures, just as demand spikes. Major producers like Interfor have shut down mills, unable to overcome these challenges. Even if the U.S. looked abroad, European exports are a fraction of what's needed. No other country can replace Canada's role as America's lumberyard. Tariffs don't boost U.S. production, they just create scarcity and drive up prices. The American sawmill is being asked to do the impossible, leaving builders and buyers caught in the middle. The pain isn't limited to home builders. States like Maine, deeply tied to Canadian trade, are hit hard. Maine's forest industry relies on Canadian wood, and tariffs threaten jobs and raise costs. The ripple spreads: car makers face higher steel and aluminum prices, making vehicles more expensive. Farmers and brewers worry about retaliatory tariffs and rising costs for supplies. What started as a lumber dispute now affects everything from cars to beer. The tariffs, meant to protect, are instead raising costs and uncertainty across the economy. The backlash has been fierce. The National Association of Home Builders leads the charge, calling tariffs a tax on home buyers. Legal challenges have scored wins, with courts questioning the administration's justification for the tariffs. The upcoming renegotiation of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement could offer a way out. Industry groups are pushing for a new softwood lumber agreement to restore stability. The lesson is clear: protectionist policies have real, painful consequences. Instead of boosting U.S. industry, tariffs have made homes, cars, and goods more expensive for everyone. The future of affordable housing may depend on whether economic reality can overcome political rhetoric.